Good evening and welcome to the world famous 105-year-old Adventurers Club. It is my distinct honor to have the great Dr. Marion Somers. Thank you for coming tonight, Dr. Marion.
Well, my pleasure, I assure you.
Now, in full disclosure, so the audience at home knows, I have a different relationship with you than I have had with other guests in the past. I've known you for 59 years and 8 months now.
Something like that.
So thank you, Mom. Is it okay if I refer to you as Mom, or would you prefer Dr. Marion?
No problem.
Tell me a little about, you grew up poor in Harlem, and I don't think of Harlem as a bastion of adventure travel. So I'm curious how you sort of developed your sense of adventure growing up on, what, 128th Street or something?
126th Street.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so tell me about what it was like. Where did you find adventure in the concrete jungle?
It was all around me. I was a very energetic, antsy kid. I could not sit still. It was impossible for me to sit still. So I climbed the fire escapes day and night at any time I had an opportunity because it used up my energy. I could feel the energy change. I ran up and down the strips. I was told time and time again I was a runner. But I didn't run for speed. I just ran to get the energy focused within myself in a way that I did not understand. And nobody around me could tell me what was going on. And they tried. And in school, it was the same thing. I could not sit still. But that brought around a lot of adventures for me.
And you tell me, most kids go to a pool in the summer, but what was your pool?
My pool was the East River. It was very exciting.
Any dead bodies floating by you, or how exciting?
They may have gone, a lot of things went floating by, and we swam in a way that went like this. That was to keep whatever was floating right in front of you out of the way. I'm not kidding. And we kids never bothered with the rats. The rats went up and down the pilings over there, and there was kind of like a beachfront, and the kids, we would all walk up and down the rocks and into the sand, and then into the water, and I did my swimming. But the rats never bothered us because we never bothered them.
So the rats had their beach and you had your beach.
Absolutely. So that's how it is in Harlem. You have your turf, we have ours. And you get to know your neighbors, whether they're two-legged or not.
I think rats are four-legged, but okay. I think that...
Well, I was thinking about the other rats that are running around.
Okay, so got it.
I just didn't
the criminals.
I didn't explain
the criminal
it to you.
element.
There were a whole bunch of those things that we had to deal with.
It sounds like it was pretty spicy where you grew up. Now, I think of the East River as having quite an undertow. Like, how did you deal with that?
Well, I use my hands a lot. I can't help it.
The Italian in you, perhaps.
Where's the Irish in me? The Willis Avenue Bridge was this way, and the pilings that were holding the bridge up had whirlpools around them. So we knew not to go there, but sometimes the whirlpools would just suck us in. And 3 times, you'd think I would learn my lessons, but with 3 times I got sucked in, and the young men there was always swimming around. We never went into the water by ourselves. That was rule number 1. And they would pull on my long pigtails and drag me out, and they're dragging me to the shore. They almost drowned me because, this one would pull this and this one was pulling on something else. But you never went swimming by yourself. You never did anything by yourself if you could get away with it.
The buddy system.
Well, we didn't call it that. It's salvation.
Got it. And I remember you talking about growing up in school and really feeling almost stupid, like you were in the class for really low achievers, which is hard to kind of juxtapose with you having a PhD. But talk about dyslexia and how that really shaped a lot of your early childhood.
Well, the problem is we didn't have a word for what I was dealing with. Nobody understood it. Teachers didn't understand it. Principal, I would beg the teachers, just let me stay in the back of the room, and as long as I could stand and be in the back of the room, then I could look at the numbers and the letters on the board, and I didn't have the word for vibrating. But I would say to the teachers, the numbers are jumping up and down. The letters are jumping up and down. And if I stood and if we were doing a session, I could stand in the back of the room, and if I could kind of move my body in the back of the room and not disturb anybody in the class, that's how I functioned in those classrooms.
You know, it's amazing about dyslexia. I'm always fascinated. Some of the most successful creative people in the world, Steven Spielberg, Virgin, Richard Branson, like tremendously successful people, all suffered mightily, especially of your generation, because as you said, it didn't have a diagnosis. How did you overcome that sort of stigma? Because you're poor and you're dyslexic, and it must have been a real challenge.
Well, we didn't have the name for it, so we just call it the jumping disease, because most people who had dyslexia, or at least in my group, were poor, but we ran a lot. So I had running buddies, and we all found that if we ran or climbed trees, I loved trees. I would climb trees, and even if a scrawny tree grew in the concrete and it could hold my weight, I would climb it. So I got to be very good at climbing trees. I could climb fire escapes. I used to jump from roof to roof because they were tenements, and sometimes they were attached and sometimes they weren't. And we would just kind of go over 2 feet openings that would be open in the buildings, and we would just jump over them like gazelles. My sister would be terrified. She would just come to the edge of the roof, wouldn't ever jump or run, but I did.
It sounds to me like you could have had a successful career as like a second-story man or a burglar or something, but you...
It crossed my mind.
Well, and that brings up the next little subject I want to bring up. So, obviously, when you were young, you were in a very difficult environment. You suffered a great sort of tragic, violent incident in your low teenagers years. I don't want to really get into it, but you went to the police for help, and the police refused to help you because it was a priest. And I think that drove you into another group, which I think is very interesting, that my 86-year-old mother worked for the mob. Maybe you could tell me about some of your teenage years and some of the jobs you had.
I knew you were going to bring
You knew
this
I
up.
couldn't resist it, Mom. Come on.
As a youngster, I took care of my sisters.
3 sisters, right?
3
younger
sisters, 3 younger sisters. My mother was not functioning, so I took care of my 3 sisters. And in that, I learned to work. I simply had a work ethic that was instilled in me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I had to go to the only authority that I understood and really trusted was the mob in the neighborhood. But everybody knew who everybody was, but you did not call anybody the mob. I mean, that was just never used that word. I'm taking a very deep breath because I can see it all happening right before my eyes as I'm talking.
And your dyslexia helped you in some way, which I think is even more fascinating.
Well, what they did was I told them what my problem was. I said, I don't want my sisters to go through the same thing I went through, or anybody that I know. And I said, I don't know how, I can't protect everybody, so I need your help. And basically, I'm going before these people, and there was a part of me that was terrified of them because we know what they did. On the other hand, they were the only protection that I knew. So I went to them and I said, I won't smoke, I won't drink, I don't want anybody touching me, but I can run. I said, I'm really good at running. And I said, I also have this very funny thing that's not so funny, that if you're at a desk and I'm over here and you're reading something that's facing you, I can understand what that is because I could read upside down. And they said, you can't do that. So they did it. We did a demonstration, and I said, that's a skill, right? And I'm telling them, that's a skill, right? I can.
And they were like, oh, yeah, we can put that to work.
Well, I'm thinking about other ways, because I went there barehanded. I didn't know how to ask for help, because I grew up not asking for help. But I knew I could not live in that kind of fear, and I did not want what happened to me to happen to my sisters. So we negotiated, and I found out I was very good at negotiating, which I did not know I had as a skill.
And you're in high school now. You're like 15, 16.
No. I'm 12 and 13
12, okay.
when this is all
Okay.
happening. And one, I said I could run. 2, I can read upside down. I said I'm also good at lip reading. And he said, how did it was the guy, the big guy, was there. In fact, he looked a little like you. And and then
Okay.
he had two henchmen that said absolutely nothing through this whole thing. They sat, one stood. And he said, how do you know you lip read? I said, because in order for me to get anywhere in school, I had to figure out what the teacher was saying because I couldn't understand what they were trying to get across to me because they were reading from a book and they would put their heads down. And I couldn't read the words because some of the words would be up there. And I couldn't read words. But when they spoke the words, I could understand what they were saying. And I had hearing problems at that time, and I didn't realize I needed glasses, but glasses were never in anybody's pocketbook.
So how did they put this particular group of skills, very unique skills, to work?
Well, it started, I was starting as a runner. I picked up envelopes from people that had money in it, and I had a little thing over here, a little booklet that if anybody ever stopped me, I would just swallow it, throw it into the gutter or something, but get rid of it. And I was just all over the neighborhood, and I really knew the neighborhood. And I remembered names. I was very good at remembering names. I was very good at remembering faces. I was very good at figuring what people were talking to, when the people were talking to each other. I could read their words. And I didn't know how I learned that, but it was a skill set I
So then you
obviously had.
graduated to like the Copacabana and places like that, which must have been.
Well, as I got older and more attractive, and I filled out by my very skinny body, they dressed me up. Not a whole lot of makeup, and there would be an outfit for me. Nothing flashy, no jewelry, and I would have to sit over here. And the person I was supposed to lip read for would be situation over there. It's like the waiters knew and everybody knew what was going on. So when I came in, I would come in with somebody, and usually an older person, a grandmother type, a grandfather type, and they would sit over there, and then the person that I was supposed to lip read and understand what he was doing, the conversations, I would sit so that I was here, but I couldn't write anything down. So as I was lip reading, the person who was over here, who was, eating something, but we weren't allowed to eat anything that was going to be very obvious because they didn't want anything where my attention would be diverted. So I would have a lot of soup when I went out these places. But I went to very swanky places and had great food, and I learned how to use utensils, which was like magic. Because we had a family of 7, and we only had 5 forks. And, so we had a meal, it would be in shifts, You finish with your fork? All right, I'm ready for it. So I came from nothing.
So let's graduate from there. Okay. 10, 12 years later, you're married. You've had a child, my older sister. You've had me. And you come up with this idea of taking the family across America on 2 7-week trips, a northern trip and a southern trip. Now, I think what's really significant about the way you plan these is the process by which you organize this long before the internet or any real available tools. Can you maybe kind of walk us through a beautiful mind version of what it was like for months rolling up into these trips?
I spent about 8 months planning the trips. I knew I wanted to. My husband was not interested. As long as I did the work, he said he'd go along with it. And we needed to have another person with it because we needed 3 drivers and we needed somebody else to share the expenses. So I invited my sister, the sister that I've been trying to protect along with my other sisters. So she went with us. And what I did it was like my job. I called up or wrote to every state that I was going to go through or planning through. And I wanted to go to the states that had parks, state parks, national parks, that have Indian ramifications.
Hieroglyphics
and all of those kind
paintings.
of things. So I went to the library, got all the books on that, figured out where we wanted to go along, basically as straight a line as we possibly could from where we were to California and then back. That was the first route, and the second time. So that was one summer of 7 weeks, and did the next thing, same thing the following year, 7 weeks, but it was a southern route.
And these were like action-packed. I mean, every day there was like 5 things we were doing. It was crazy.
It was so well organized that by the time we were ready for the trip, I was already tired before we went on the trip because I was exhausted. But the states were magnificent. I wrote to every state, and they sent me these flyers that were just gorgeous. I don't know that they would do it now with all the mud, the cutbacks and what have you. But I had tons and tons of everything that was planning to go to. I made it so that if there was a special event going on, each of the states were sending me all the activities, the big events that were going on in the summer. So our trip was not like this. Our trip was zoop, 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 according to where something was happening. So there was something going on all the time. But the whole idea of the trip was that my kids, which were also going to be city kids, understood that there is a whole lot of nature out there, a whole lot of beauty, and unless you work at it, it stays there and you stay in your little cubby somewhere. No matter how magnificent the cubby is, you have to touch nature. You have to touch the stones. You have to be in the atmosphere that all of these places are, and you or at least with my very vivid imagination, I became whatever the area was. I became part of that, and my kids had the same. My husband used to say, they're catching your disease, their imagination.
Oh, I caught it. I got a fever from it, let me tell you.
You and your sister are both travelers.
That's true.
But you learned to love what we were looking at. I was going to art school at that time, and studio art and art therapy, and I had notarized letters from the school saying that I am really an artist and I want to see these artifacts and what have you. So we were privileged to see the artifacts that most tourists don't. They hide them somewhere. They don't let the tourists go in there, people deface these things. And my children were taught to honor this. This is our heritage. This is a heritage for your children, the next generation. And in that process, my kids really got a sense of beauty. There was one time we were in Yellowstone Park, and we each have a little bucket. You and I. You were 5 years old, so sideways you were. But it was, you were carrying a little bucket, and we'd come around the bend because we're very gentle whenever we're on nature.
Low impact.
No, low impact.
Leave nothing but footprints, you always told me.
Right, that's right. Thank you for remembering that. But you really, and we turned the bend, and as we turned the bend, there's a mama bear with her cub. And my heart goes, and you said, oh, look, Mara, baby bear. And you're at the top of your lungs, and the little baby bear goes, boing, he's looking, and the mother bear goes like this with the cub. And I'm doing the same thing with my cub. You were my cub. And we've got the blueberries. And you said, but he's so cute. And I said, Craig, we have to be very, very careful here. And you started waving to the bear. And it was so adorable and terrifying at the same time. And as the mother, the bear cub is waving at you, you're waving at it. Yeah. I'm pushing it back so that I'm trying to stop this. And I said, maybe it's a good idea if we put some of the blueberries on the ground and then we walk backwards. I don't want to walk backwards. That's all you would. I want to stay here and play with the bear. And I said, no. We've got to go backwards. So we had this wonderful conversation. And you remembered that like 20 years later, we were at someplace, and all of a sudden you said, you remember that bear story? And you started the whole story, and you said it with such vividness that I thought, this is what taking kids to the parks and being around animals and seeing them in their natural habitat is really all about, because they have a feeling for it, they have a love for nature, they have a love for not making a negative impact.
It's true. I mean, you gave me an incredible passion. I really love you for that. You taught me about the outdoors. You taught me about doing the research. I remember our apartment, which was not a big apartment, was wall-to-wall travel paraphernalia. I mean, anybody coming into that place was like, there's some crazy people living here because there was nothing but little staplers and pins and rope going everywhere. And it was, I always think of it as like that movie, A Beautiful Mind. And so thank you. So then, as I started to grow up, I remember there was a point where you really got into mountain climbing. Not so much technical mountain climbing, but it was after the divorce. Obviously, that was not a pleasant experience. And as you related it to me, that there was like an inner peace that came through being in the mountains. Maybe you could talk about that a little.
Well, it goes back to my early childhood. I found that I understood my body better as a human being, understanding my body better. I was going to school and I had all of that, but I still had this dyslexia. And what happened was it was magical.
I mean, tell me about the peace that you get in climbing the mountains. There's an inner sort of.
What happens when I go up a mountain? It's the magic happens when I am climbing. Yes, I have a goal. I'm trying to get to the top or as close to the top as I possibly can. But in that process, I learned, am I running away from something in this climb or am I going towards something? And that became a line of demarcation for me because anytime I started any project, especially any project with nature, is this bringing me forward or am I going backwards in this? And somewhere in the climb, in every climb without fail, in every climb, I have found that modem where something clicks within me. I mean, it's almost like I could feel the click. And I know that I'm on the right path. The goal has opened up and I understand my future, my planning, and it becomes so clear. It's like, not that I walk around with a cloud, but it's like all of a sudden there's clarity that I can't explain to anybody. Or maybe you have to be dyslexic to understand that once you get that clarity, it is clarity that stays with you for the rest of your life until you reach that particular goal. So I am totally and have always been goal-oriented, but I found that when I'm running or climbing, especially if I'm climbing, when I was younger, I climbed a lot of trees. In fact, when my mother would yell out, "Come on, Marion, come on home, go find her," she would say, "Go look up at the tree." She's always up in the damn trees. So I have always gone to the heights. Not that I'm spiritual and looking for, the heavens to open up, but something opens up in me. It is a physical, emotional, and very strong feeling. And once I have that feeling, I am absolutely unstoppable.
I think everybody in this club can relate to that. I think everybody would say that same version of that. I think there's an inner peace that comes from the solitude and the wind whistling by and the cold on your face and the level of exhaustion and the hyperoxygenation that's going on. It's this sort of perfect combination that I think kind of strips down all the bullshit of the world, and it just is like you in this moment in time. And it's why that we talk about getting off the beaten path. As you know, this club is all about, get off your chair, go outside, experience life, get lost, enjoy the experience of being found. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate so much of the wisdom that I learned growing up with you, but then having the freedom as a young adult to get on my bicycle and go for days and disappear. And, you just accepting that I would eventually show up. I would get hungry enough that I would come back, and I might be a little bloody and a little beat up. Maybe, there was this, a police car involved, but, eventually I would come home and there would be a story. I remember, I think it was around 1973 or 1974. I was 8 or 9. And I remember being very present to this sort of issue about Outward Bound, or hearing about Hurricane Island. I think it's called Hurricane Island, the adventure. And maybe you could kind of tell me, first of all, what you wanted to do and what the problem was.
It was a big problem. When I wanted to go, there was only men.
Well, explain what Outward Bound is for anybody who doesn't know what Outward Bound is.
Outward Bound is a wonderful experience for anybody who wants to travel. Mm-hmm. and they have different adventures, and you can do sailing, you can go mountain climbing, you can go whatever particular category, or if you want to go to a particular state and go to that and find out what their activity is. And I wanted to do it all, but I was always financially restricted. And in that particular case, they only had men. And it had originally started in England, and they found that their soldiers were coming back and their soldiers were not so strong. And a lot of them perished because they weren't really physically fit for it. And then it was brought to the United States, and it blossomed here in the United States, and we needed it. But I was at the point where I needed something like Outward Bound, but they wouldn't even make it. I tried to be an exception. I said, I can be very masculine if you want me to be. You know, I can fit in with men. Been around men all my life. I like them. I said, no problem. I can do. I did.
That was before you could identify as a man. Now it would be no problem. Although I have to say, given your anatomy and looking at your early pictures, it would have been kind of hard for you to identify as anything other than a hot woman. But I'm just saying.
I am a very open-minded human being. And I started a campaign very gently in calling them and writing them letter and saying, you know, we're half the population. You shouldn't deny the, you know, the female population. And most of the time I didn't get any response whatsoever. Not even a polite postcard saying, please leave this alone. Nothing like that. So I did another campaign, and I called I was living in New York. Because I was very politically active at that time in New York, and I called this one up and I called that one up, and I said, don't you think this is an affront to women? And I got this organization, I got some women's organization, and these women organizations were not interested in Outward Bound, but they were interested in the discrimination against women.
Yeah.
And I did not want this to be a discrimination issue, but it really was. So,
you just want to go camping.
I just wanted to go out, and I want to hang out and do the things that the boys get away with doing.
And this went on for quite a while, like a couple of years, right?
2 years.
Yeah.
2 years and 2 months.
And they say hell hath no fury, like a scorned woman, mom, you know, what?
I wasn't scorned. I was just plain pissed off.
I'm not sure what the difference is, but okay.
And I was tenacious. I was relentless. That's what they told me afterwards. I was really relentless, and I thought I was being very polite this whole thing. I was just wearing them down is really what happened. And finally, I got a phone call saying, "You win." It was as simple as that. You win. Where our policy board is doing what they're going to do, and they invited me to be on the first Outward Bound. I couldn't make the first one. I made the second one. And then when I finally did I signed up for it that following year, and I was thrilled. I went to sailing, and I was absolutely thrilled out of my mind. And so I'm standing on the pier, and then...
So wait a minute, what was the trip? Before we get into the specifics of the trip, what was the adventure that you had signed up for?
Sailing.
But it was also an island stay, right? Maybe just kind of walk through it.
Well, you're basically going to be sailing, but you're sailing on an open hull boat. You know, there's no bathroom, which I didn't realize in the brochure. They didn't say anything about no bathroom, and I'm basically a shy person.
Sounds like you got over that one.
There's no choice. Yeah, I'm out. So I signed up. I did all the things so I could do it. I went, and then I get on this boat. And they give you a couple of things that, you know, first they give you a shopping list of all the things you have to take. And then before you get on the boat, they say, you only have enough room for this many things. So that's your first impact with the organization.
And it's an open dory. Like, this is not like a sailboat with beds.
No, it is so open. So open. You sail, your propelling is the only motivation to get the thing going is the sails go up. And if the sails have no wind to get them going, you're rowing, you know, group on this side and group on this side, and you're rowing, and you have to, then I wound up, we did 2 days of rowing, and I found out I'm a leader.
Shocking.
Well.
Shocking that you would take control of the men on the boat.
Well, they were just lolly-dollying, you know, and we were going nowhere. I We were going around in circles, and I said, we're going around in circles. All right, I said, I said, put this one over here. I go to the front. I said, okay, I'm going to call out. We're going to row together. We're going to row. So we got moving. And I was not laughing at the time, but we laughed at the end. And then
you had a couple of Marines on the trip.
wait, don't get ahead of my story. This is my story. This is my story. So I know you have to go like this.
Don't worry, you're all right on time. You can go long.
So we did two days of rowing, and I was top notch. We really moved around. But I learned how to go to the bathroom delicately, because I found one of the ladies would hold on to my pants or something they hold on to this part of me while I pull down this part, and your rear end is going over the side of the boat. That's so undignified, and I'm so embarrassed, so mortified. I'm a very private person, and that was gone by the fourth day. I had no pride whatsoever, none whatsoever.
And all the fish loved it.
We won't even go into some of the things that went in, but we had 2 Marines there. It was 4 women, 2 female teachers, and the rest were men. And 2 Marines, and they were such gorgeous-looking men. And they had...
Mom, really? On the make on Hurricane Island? Like,
No, they didn't... Don't...
Go on with the beautiful
my...
Marines.
Anyway, there was gorgeous Marines, and the first day, when we got some sails, and they're up there rowing, sailing the boat and navigating and all of that. The second day, they were going to do the same thing again. And I said, look, I paid the same amount of money you did. I went up to them, and I said, I paid the same amount of money. I am taking the road. I'm going to be the navigator now. And they said, no, you're not. I said, get out of here. Get out of here. I am navigating, and that's all there is to it. I said, there is no conversation on this. I am navigating. And then I said, everyone here is going to get a chance, and you're not going to get any more chances. You already used up your 2 chances.
Sounds like a lot of my childhood, to be honest with you. So.
Touche. Anyway, what I was really looking forward to on the Outward Bound is they drop you off on an island. And you're solo. You get 3 days alone. Now, I have spent my whole life up to this point never being alone, absolutely never being alone, taking care of my sisters, taking care of the stepkids, taking care of other relatives, and just being the caregiver for the family, which is a role that I took on, and, in life you take on the role. But anyway, when we got on the island, they each one of us gets an island all to ourselves. And I'm going, oh, goody. I'm so thrilled. And they drop you off, and we're all on this boat, and they take us, and they drop us, and they drop us, and they drop us. And they don't say anything. They give us a tin for supposedly cooking something. It's just a tin can. And 10 matches, but it was so damp, the matches were useless. And a 10-foot square tarp to put over you, but just so wet all the time it didn't make any difference. And you had to swear that you would not take your vest off, because you're on an island all by yourself.
Your life vest, your
life
flotation
jacket,
device.
yes.
Yeah.
And a whistle. And the whistle is, if you had any problems and you wanted to get off the island, you just blew the whistle and they would come and get you. So that worked very fine. So I'm on the island. The matches, of course, didn't work. And I was so happy to be all by myself, because I never had the opportunity to be never had the opportunity to be by myself, except when I was climbing a tree by myself. And it was absolutely magnificent. I found all of these wonderful thoughts that were just churning around in my head. I also found that I talked to the waves, and I talked to the bugs, because I have B+ blood, and bugs like B+.
You taste sweet, I guess.
Whatever it is, they love me. If I used to wonder, why do my 3 sisters never get bitten and I always got bitten? But I found out later they have very different blood. Anyway, So I'm on the island, and I'm so grateful. The bugs stopped biting me because I talked to the bugs, and I said, "Look, I'm here for a vacation. You're eating me alive," and it worked for the
They
second
talk to
2
the
days.
rats. The rats call the bugs. They say, give her a break, you know.
They were, whatever it was, they left me alone. So then, after the 3 days, they come and pick you up, and then you're supposed to sit around the fire and talk about your experience. Well, I'm not big about talking about my personal life. Never mind with all these people that I already knew so well. I mean, I knew everything about them that anybody could ever know, as you would know on a boat kind of situation like this. And after everybody in our group talks, they say, "Marion, you have to talk." I said, "I really don't have to. They know me. You know, we know each other fine. You have to talk." So once I opened my mouth, there was no stopping me. I couldn't believe I just kept, and I had a wonderful experience talking about myself because up to that point in my whole life, I didn't talk about myself. So that was extraordinary experience in itself. And then I asked, was there a purpose for each of the islands? Was there some personality in each of the islands? And they said, yes. You were dropped off at the island that Anne Marlowe, she wrote Gifts from the Sea.
Which you had read.
I had read that, but it had nothing to do with with Outward Bound. And the book is all about women following and finding who they are and finding the comfort in the solitude and letting the trappings of everyday things just go and finding the solitude that helps us become who we are. Because women are, I think, incredible creatures and make such a contribution, but very often women do not accept their contribution or understand their contribution. And that trip was a very big turning point for me. And I was so grateful that they told me that they purposefully put me on that island because they felt, without knowing anything about me, that my personality and the way I behaved, their words, the way I behaved and how I took charge, they felt that there was a kinship between us.
Did you keep in touch with the good-looking Marines afterwards, or?
No, they made it very clear how they felt about me when they left.
Aw.
And then they said, after they said all of their negative things, that you are the bravest broad that we have ever met. So I take that as a compliment and wiped out all the other stuff that they said, which was probably true.
I'm curious, how have you incorporated this need for solitude, from that time on in your life? Do you do you do a daily meditation? How did you take those lessons and make that an action item or part of your daily life moving forward?
I make sure that I spend about an hour every day for me, whether I'm reading something that is spiritual or I'm reading something that is filling my soul with some sort of art and beauty in some way, shape, or form. I always take a walk every day, and I very often will take walks near bodies of water, not a pool. A pool doesn't do anything for me whatsoever. But getting into moving water does something to my soul, and I encourage people whenever I'm working with people to just get to understand where your quiet level of satisfaction is, because everybody has a different level of satisfaction. And once they find it, it's easy to just incorporate it, and no matter what is happening around you, you get that wonderful peace and quiet, and it's yours. It's your sanctuary. It's how to get through the ups, downs, and sideways that happen in everybody's life.
I think in our device-focused, centric, whatever the word would be, life, it's easy to fill up every minute of every day with, fascinating, crazy visuals, media, stories. But I think we do a tremendous disservice to our own subconscious by not sitting quietly. And certainly, you have helped influence me in that way. I don't spend an hour, but I've spent about 15 to 20 minutes every day meditating, just sitting quietly and just being in the moment, and that might be, sitting listening to a bird or just the hum of life. But it's brought me a lot of peace in a fairly chaotic world, and a world that's just filled with entertaining media and things to do all the time. So thank you for that. I know you continued to travel quite a bit after that. You did the Yucatan, you did Machu Picchu. I don't know if you want to touch on that briefly, and then I want to kind of get into who Dr. Marion is and some of your bus tours.
Anytime I explore another venue that has a culture that I appreciate, I want to read about it before I go, get as much basic knowledge, and then go to the site and just absorb it and love it and inhale it. And touching for me, and especially in the business I'm in a geriatric care manager, and I deal with a lot of people from whether they're just aging or they are physically, mentally, or emotionally handicapped in or challenged in some way. I have found the magic of touch is very important. And when I go to these sites, I am always looking for the ancient wisdom. So I will touch the stones and touch the rocks and touch the ground. I have been known to just get on my hands and knees and touch the ground. And you feel, of course, it could just be my imagination, and let's go with that. But I have found such peace and quiet and satisfaction and insights by touching the ground and touching these stones, because the people who did Machu Picchu, you do the long walk to get to the place. I mean, you can take a bus or something, but that's not my way. So after you take this long walk, you get to Machu Picchu, and it opens up before you, and you look at it and say, this is like not real. The magic of how the whole thing is put together. These people understood the cosmos. They understood how to get out agriculture so that large populations can live in this stone fortress, which is part of the land. They incorporated everything that they needed. The water was pumped up not pumped up, but they went with the natural flows of things. They did terraces. They did so many things that are so far beyond what we think is that age should have had, that there is so much intelligence and education and foresight and insight that we can get from learning the people who have been before us. So I try to incorporate it, but I touch everything. And I have found, since I work with people that are very often close to death or they're in a hospital, I always ask, if I'm going to touch somebody, may I touch you? And some people, that's the first time somebody's said that to them. So I find being in cultures that are foreign to me, but I'm educated about them, but they're foreign to me, I try to incorporate as much of it as possible.
Oh, that's wonderful. I want to talk a little bit about, we're kind of getting near the end, but I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Marion, the moniker Dr. Marion, and kind of what that brand represents or represented to you as a geriatric care manager, geriatrician. Maybe you can, we're going to show maybe a video for a couple of minutes, but maybe kind of set it up. Like, what were you doing in this crazy vehicle that you were driving around the country in? Maybe give us a little setup.
Well, Dr. Marion was born out of my need to make an impact on the world. I was talking about the tsunami that is here now. I've been talking about it since the 1970s.
The elder care tsunami of boomers aging out, like this massive, tens of millions of people and a lack of caregivers to take care of them, right? That's a tsunami.
Right,
okay.
right. But It's been around for a long time. All the signs have been there. All the statistics have been there. All the graphics have been there. Anybody who wants to look at it, you'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to know it's coming. In fact, they put me on Senator D'Amato's Social Security committee in the 1980s. And all the statistics were there. And we wrote a report. This is, I don't talk about this normally, but we wrote a report. We gave it to him. He said, thank you for the report. And he took the report and went like this over the garbage can. And it went in there. And that was the Social Security. And we knew back then that Social Security wasn't going to be able to extend to what the government was, or the politicians were promising. We knew it. So once I knew that they know what's happening, then I did my own drumbeat, going around the country, trying to wake people up that this is going to happen. This is not a maybe. This is going to happen. And these are the things that we need to do now. And everybody can take part in their own taking care of themselves individually and their community, and then prepare for it, because it's here now.
And that turned out to be a pretty fun trip. 2 trips, actually.
I loved the trip.
Because we got to do it together. We took this old antique 1966 Greyhound bus, and we spent 2 years traveling around the world. Went to every state in the nation, and
Yep, we did.
And lectured. Tried to wake them up to the reality. Rich, can you roll that video? It's about 3 minutes. I put together a little reel of some of the Dr. Marion highlights of you harassing various politicians and in the way that you do, as well as encouraging them to wake up and smell the reality of what's coming your way. So, Rich, can we?
Hi, we're in New York City, my hometown. We're starting off the 3 and 4 campaign and the one reverse mortgage contest of $50,000 in New York City with this wonderful bus that we call Nellie. And we're going to be on the bus for 9 weeks, 9 consecutive weeks, going across the country from New York all the way up and down the East Coast, then over to the West Coast. As many stops as we possibly can, talk to as many people as we can, waking up America to the point that they have to start doing something now about their long-term care health needs.
Hi, we're at Fox News. I'm going to be interviewed in just a couple of minutes.
Dr. Marion has just launched a national contest to give one caregiver an ultimate makeover worth $50,000.
My frame of mind tonight, but I feel alright. Yeah, I feel alright. Well, this old bus keeps on rolling along. She's got a few extra miles, but she keeps going strong.
We're in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm going to be interviewed for Virginia this morning.
And so we dedicate this episode to the emerging of common sense, together with a man we very surprisingly encountered during our visit to Washington, D.C., His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who was there to promote world peace.
Whatever it is, you get some virtuous certificate or entire.
Welcome to the 3 and 4 Need More tour. On our journey across the country to spread awareness for elder issues, we went to Ames, Iowa, where the Republican candidates were holding their straw poll. We wanted to find out what their plan was on how to deal with the elder tsunami that's heading our way.
Hi, I just want to ask you about elder care issues. That's all I want.
Well, we got our next event. We got it. I look forward to answering.
Thank you very much.
Can't do it unless you stop all that war.
Okay, one more question. Ms. Ellen, you've been following me all day, girl. I'm gonna let you ask the question.
3 and 4 need more. 3 and 4 need more.
A lot of great adventures, Mom. That was a really good one. Why the name Nellie? How did you end up naming it Nellie?
Well, the first week we were out, we were just dealing with the photography and the getting the cameras. We had a full film crew on board at all times. It was wild, and we're going up this hill, and it's going up. We're starting to think that maybe the bus is not going to make it. We get to the top, and we were all so relieved when it got this way, and then all of a sudden it went like down like this, and we all simultaneously, "Whoa, Nellie!" And that's how the bus got its name.
16 tons. It's a lot of steel. So I want to finish off the night on a subject that I think most people are tremendously uncomfortable with. I think it's really an amazing part of life, but I think most people fear it. You're an expert in death, dying, and bereavement, and I would love to have you share some of the wisdom that you've experienced from people's sort of end of life, and the beauty of being able to participate in that final leg of somebody's journey that, death and taxes, we're all going there. So maybe you can share a little bit of that.
Even mountains die. Trees die. Everything in this world dies. Except I don't believe in death. I believe in transition. We leave whatever our bodies is all about, and we transition to another element. And in this process of the work that I have done for the last 60 years is dealing with people who are coming face to face with either a sickness that has impacted their lives or their families, or somebody that is near and dear to them is about to pass, and they don't know how to deal with it. They feel whatever it is they're feeling. It's grief, it's anger, it's a composite of so many things. So what I would like you to do is to help me so that I can show you what I do, because you can take this with you wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And if you just put whatever you have in your hands down and rub your hands together so that you feel the friction. You go skiing, you warm your hands up. You do it as fast as you possibly can. It doesn't take very long. And what was that? Okay. Now, if you are dealing with somebody who is on the point of almost death, their hands are almost always cold, almost guaranteed to be cold. You warm your hands up and just feel the energy between your hands right now. There's an energy. There's an energy. Some people put it this way, they could feel it this way. If you have somebody that you love and you want to let them know that you're there, but they're at a point that they don't know you're there, just put their cold hand, just one hand, one of their hands, in between the hands that have been circulated like this. So you just put it and hold their hand gently in between your hands. Can everybody see what I'm doing? Okay. And wait for the hand to turn the same temperature as your hands. Sometimes it'll take 5, 7, or even 8 minutes. 8 minutes is the longest I've ever had to wait. And I'm talking about somebody who's, ready to exit this world. And when you do this, they know somebody is there. Don't talk to them right away. Let them feel the warmth of another human being. Because people, when they're in this situation, are usually having doctors talking over their heads, families are talking around them, and the person who is in this state doesn't know who's talking. They don't know why anybody's talking. They don't know who's there. I've even had people say, "Oh, I think the angels have come." When you have their hand in between yours, and you've waited until the temperature of their cold hand is now the same as your hand, and you can feel the quiet, and they know you're there without you even saying anything, because all of a sudden there will be some sort of recognition from them. Something very, very small. And I always say, "Hi, this is Marion. I am your granddaughter." Or whatever the relationship is. Don't give them a lot of information, because they are processing in their own mind. They don't know whether they're dead or they're in some sort of dream state or what is happening to them. But you will be able to contact people who seem to have drifted away into whatever is their journey next. But in this process, they are always peaceful, because you have eliminated fear. It's the fear of the unknown that people are going through when they're either sick or they're in a state of very profound loss. Somebody could be crying hysterically. You can do the same thing. You will get their attention, and they will know you're there for them. And that's what these people need. They need to know they're not alone, because the worst thing is to feel alone when you're going through a negative process, whatever it is, whatever stage of life you're in. But this works, and it works every time. And when people, how are you feeling now? I'm asking you, my audience, how does this feel for you?
I feel scared. If you start rubbing your hands near me, I'm going to get worried. Hey, Mom, I got to tell you, this is a great talk. I'm so glad you came. Thank you very much. Amazing experience. Lance, do we have time for a couple of questions? I don't know.
Let's take some questions from the audience. If you have a question, put your hand up, and we'll see what Dr. Marion has to say. Who's right up front?
I loved that. Thank you so much for speaking, and what a beautiful, you two are just so beautiful. The whole time I was so interested to hear if you have explored any form of energy healing. I mean, from the second you were talking about running around, and then the deep connection with Mother Earth, and then of course Machu Picchu. And then the last process you did, believe it or not, is a Peruvian Munai-ki process known as decoupling. And when you described isolation and feeling alone and not connected, you had said on the deathbed, and really, quite frankly, we're experiencing a lot of that right now here on Earth with people so disconnected. So my question for you is, have you formally studied energy work, or is this all your innate wisdom?
It came from, do you want me to answer that now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Answer the question.
I have been doing this my entire life, but I didn't know what I was doing. When I was working with elderly people, I would say, "What feels comfortable? May I do this? May I do that?" And when I first had children, I would touch their ears if they were crying, and just rub their ears. I didn't know anything about acupuncture or any of those things, but I would just rub their ears. Now, if I'm on an airplane and there's a crying baby, and I always walk up and down the aisles because I can't sit that long still. Parents usually say, yeah, take the kid for a, we need 15 minutes of quiet time. And just rubbing the ears very, very gently on the outer rim of the ear is all that's needed. And I will hum to them. And I've always sung to my clients. I had a doctor friend, he says, Marion, come sing to me, just sing. He was having a really, really bad time. He says, I just need you to sing to me. Hold my hand, do your number, and just sing to me. So I'm singing to the medical doctor because he needed to be comforted. Everybody needs to be comforted. And when it's appropriate, they need to be touched. We have a society that doesn't touch, by and large. And we all need to be touched. It's our connection.
Should we see if there's one more question? We have one more question.
Thank you so much, both of you, beautiful. And what an honor that I've gotten to spend time with you. I want to extend that longer. I've been, I could say, blessed to be present at the moment of death a number of times. And my experience is they are there and then they're not. And I'm working with a man right now who is proud to identify himself as, what do you call it, not agnostic, beyond that. Like he has no...
Atheist?
What? Atheist. And I said, so Adam, when you die, what happens? It's over. So I'm describing this experience of, have you ever been there at the moment of death? And he's a horse whisperer. And he said, oh, many times. I've watched horses die. I said, well, what's your experience? He said, well, they're not there anymore. I said, who is the they, right? So where I'm going with this is I don't have any need to change anybody or convince them or transform them or any of that. But do you have any way, but it's such a wonderful experience to be there at the moment of death.
It is.
And anybody, I would like others to share that if they're open to it. Do you have any way to communicate that or help them, assist them to be available to that?
When my experience has been that when I've worked with nurses that don't even want to be in the room if somebody's going to pass on. There's an energy that happens in the room when the person actually does pass. So you're holding on, I'm talking about somebody who's just about ready to make the passing. And I've held on to their hands, and I'm holding on to the hand. And all of a sudden, I'm holding on to a hand that has no energy in it whatsoever. Every molecule in your body is an entity unto itself. And my experience seems to be that when somebody passes on, something happens. The energy is really going in the room. I open the windows. I open all the windows. I'll open doors if the family, I always ask for permission for whatever I do. And in that process, if you stay very quiet, you can feel the hair on the back of your skin just feel like a tingle, like somebody's gone over it with a feather. And sometimes that same feeling will go around the whole room. If people are open to the experience, I'll roll up my sleeves because I really want them, whoever this new entity is that is now making the transition, I want them to know that they were loved and they will be continued to be loved wherever their journey is. So I don't believe in death and that's the end of that life. It just continues because everything that is on this earth that we're aware of, trees die, they go into the ground and they become part of the fertilizer, and other creatures go onto that tree that doesn't have any life, but it's still giving life to other creatures, and other things will grow out of it. The same thing is with us. Our energy just continues to go. That's my belief system, and it works for me.
Well, on that note, for all of you that are still alive and all of you that are still alive at home, and if you're living next Thursday, I hope you'll come and join us for dinner. We do this every Thursday night. We have a 3-course meal and an adventure talk. We're open to the public. It's always a different crowd, as you can tell from tonight. We are the 105-year-old Adventurers Club, and we hope you'll come visit us. And I thank you, Dr. Marion and Mom, for a lovely evening.